the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
And Tatum doesn't have, quite frankly. So I think like Ant going on a conference finals run, I think would be better for the league. So, I mean, maybe it plays out that way, but I think I trust the Thunder a little bit more than the Timberwolves.
Speaking of Luka, final thing here, Jovan. Is Luka your MVP with a week to go here in the season? Why or why not? No,
he is not. My MVP is Nikola Jokic. I think he's the best player in basketball. And I think it's kind of reminding me of the LeBron run in the late 2000s and early 2010s, where you almost have to create an argument to not give it to him. And I love Luka. He's one of my favorite players to watch. He's also I guess full disclosure, I'm half Serbian. Jokic is Serbian. Luka is also technically half Serbian. So I have affinities to both players just from like a personal standpoint of my Balkan brothers succeeding in the NBA and being arguably the two best players in the league. But I look at Jokic, I think he should have won MVP. I had a vote last year. I don't think I have a vote this year. I voted Jokic MVP. I think I was on the right side of history with how the playoffs played out. And I know it's a regular season award, but he was the heavy favorite to win it at the time before there started being different storylines in the media in terms of, what people were voting for the award and all this different stuff. So that kind of derailed his campaign. And I think he probably should just be a 3-time MVP right now and going, and then, maybe I'd feel differently. Not that necessarily matters, but I just look at it like he's the best player in the league. I think if you were asking all 30 GMs, pick one player to win it tomorrow, I think at least 25 of them would pick Jokic, if not more. So that to me is he had a dominant playoff run. He's been dominant for several years now, and he's the best player in the league. And then it's also backed up by, if you look at, I'm a big advanced metrics guy. Most of the advanced metrics, he's number one in the league, if not top 5 at a minimum. Luka's still in the mix. Luka's top 3, top 5 in a lot of them, but Jokic is ahead in most of them. And then also looking at, you can make the case, okay, well, Denver, look at that starting lineup. It's arguably the best lineup in the league. Jokic has more talent around him, but the Nuggets are 20 points per 100 possessions worse with Jokic off the floor than compared to when he's on the floor. And that is a much smaller difference with Dallas, 9 points per 100 possessions. So Jokic is actually the biggest gap of any of the MVP candidates. Shai's around 12, Giannis is around 10, Tatum, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's also somewhere in that range. So
he's number 2 in plus minus, player plus minus, right behind Jokic.
Yeah, so Denver just falls apart when Jokic is on the floor. And even compared Dallas to Denver, Kyrie Irving has played in more games than Jamal Murray. So even having your number 2, it's a 1-game difference, but still, I know Kyrie's been injured. Dallas has had a lot of injuries, but Jamal Murray's missed a lot of time. And the Nuggets offense is really a 2-man game between Jokic and Murray. And the fact that he's been able to figure it out without Murray for large stretches, with Reggie Jackson starting and the drop off with the Nuggets bench. I think Dallas is deeper than Denver. I trust more guys on Dallas's bench than I do Denver. It's probably close, but Denver's bench gets real thin real quickly. So
it's also probably great for Denver, right? Because they know you need Jamal Murray to be playoff Jamal. So it's he gets all this rest and Reggie gets all this.
Yeah. No, I think Kyrie's probably been better than Jamal in a regular.
I'm just saying, with Jamal, we know it's just a blessing in disguise not to have him and get all this run, and you just have Jamal because what you need is he's one of the best playoff basketball players we've seen. Jokic is obviously amazing, but Jamal, we've seen just him go nuclear twice now, and you just
trust me, I've seen it plenty of times.
You've seen
I've seen it plenty of times this season, but I guess that was my long way of saying I think it's Jokic. I think he's the best player in the league. I think he's.
Do you think he wins it ultimately though?
Based on the last ESPN straw poll, which I'm a participant in, he was in the lead. I think it's gonna be and look, Luka's having historic numbers, the 34 points a game. If you add in his assists, he is contributing to more points per game than any player in NBA history. So like that alone is ridiculous. And I think if Luka wins, like I don't have an issue with it. Like I have to make a choice. So if I'm making a choice, I would pick Jokic. But between Jokic, Shea, and Luka, I think you can make it. Because again, we talked about Shea and the Thunder. Like I think that team was a borderline, like, 6 to 8 seed entering the season. The fact that they've been a top 2 seed for most of the year, even if they finish 3, they're right there with those other 2 teams. Like that to me is, yes, Chet has been great as a rookie. Jalen Williams has taken a big step. Mark Daigneault is one of the best coaches in the league. They have some solid depth there, but it's really been Shea taking a leap from an all-star to a superstar, like top 5 guy in the league. And like that, we know, like, you need one of those guys to be a true contender. The Thunder have that. And that to me is Shea taking his game to a different level. So I think Shea deserves to be mentioned alongside those 2. Like that should be the top 3 in some order. But if I had to pick one, I would go Jokic.
Yeah, I wonder, like, it's one of those things where people wonder about Embiid, where they're like, are they going to just give him one? Because we just know he's been one of the 3 best that year. And it's like, you just it'd be weird in history that he just never had one. And Luka, at a certain point where you're like, it's just a little weird that Luka has been one of the best players and he just doesn't have one. And it's like you said with LeBron and some of this fatigue here, where people are looking for reasons to not give it to Jokic at this point. But I'm right there with you. I think a lot of people would be upset if it ends up being Luka. I could see nationally, or certain fan bases not a fan of it going that way, but I don't know. I think Luka's been unbelievable. I think it's still Jokic, but it wouldn't surprise me if it goes down. You don't see it being anybody else, right? Like it feels like it's one of those 2 at this point.
I think Shea's gonna be number 2. I think Shea was second in the latest straw poll, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was.
I just don't see it. I just don't see Shea getting it.
I would agree that I think Luka's making, because like the other thing here was Dallas was in the play-in for a lot of the season, and they've gone on this surge here to now get into 5th and as you mentioned earlier, win 50 games. So they might end up winning 52. They might finish 52-30. So like that's a solid MVP season, finishing top 5. Like typically you got to be really good. You got to be like top 3.
Yeah.
But we've seen situations where guys are like top 5 or top 6. It's very rarely like lower than that. So I think he's hit the thresholds. And again, like historic numbers, like I don't have an issue.
I mean,
with
he's
Luka.
throwing floaters in from just below the 3-point line. Like he's just making, he's hitting like he's just hitting playground shots now. It just feels like he's doing just silly stuff. He's just mastered it too much.
He's crazy, but I also think that like it just does remind me of like I think, and I guess I'm not trying to make this comparison because I think higher of Luka than I do, but like I look at the 2011. This is maybe not the best. But like the fact that LeBron was like 3rd in 2011 in MVP voting, and like Derrick Rose had a special season, but when they matched up in the playoffs, it was just like these 2 guys are not on the same level. Like LeBron James is clearly the better player, and even Dwight Howard finished ahead of him in 2011. And I just like sometimes I think we overthink these things, and it's like when Karl Malone wins the MVP award during Michael Jordan's run. It's just like Jokic is the best player. Like I think most 9 out of 10 NBA fans would agree with that. So why are we? And it's not like, I mean, his team, they might finish as the 1 seed. He's almost averaging a 30 or 26 point triple double as a center, which is like just absolutely absurd. I mean, it's not like his numbers are shabby either. So, because even like some of the LeBron years, you can make the case like Kevin Durant had better numbers, or Steph was on the rise, or whatever. And like they had better numbers, or their teams were better. Really, by the end of the season, like I think most people have Denver as like at worst the number 2 team in the league. So unless you're picking Jason Tatum, which most people won't, I don't really see the counterpoint to picking Jokic.
I love it. Jovan, you have a podcast now. Your YouTube's doing great. I love it. Buha's Block. You're obviously still covering the Lakers for The Athletic, but what can the good folks check out from you across the podcast and the writing front this week?
Yeah, so check out my work at The Athletic. I just wrote about the Lakers, kind of did as we talked about earlier, just sort of an autopsy of where things went wrong this season.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.